Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 590 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our sixth book just came out. It's called I'm So Beautiful, It's Ridiculous, Unleashing and Promoting Strength, Self-Worth, and Real Sisterhood. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, community support is probably the biggest reason for overall success. Inevitably, life is going to throw you some curveballs. You just don't know when they are coming. If you're surrounded by people who believe in you, who have the tools to support you, and can guide you through those difficult moments, then there really is nothing in life that will keep you down. The question is, are the people around you adding to your life, or are they subtracting from your life? It's up to you to do that evaluation on a regular basis and be sure that the right people are surrounding you. Let's talk more about that concept with our next guest. At age 28, Will Walker has worn a lot of titles: author, fraternity president, cancer survivor, board chair. But the most honest title for him might be in process. He was 22 and had his whole life planned until cancer stole his vision. Will was 5 when leukemia first taught him that life doesn't follow your timeline. He has rebuilt his life through vulnerability, structure, and community support, and that rebuilding process becomes the foundation for leading other people through their darkest moments. Welcome to the show, Will.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the intro as well. That was really great.
Well, you wrote most of it, so I just put it together to make it sound really cool. But I tell you what, I'm available if you want to pack me into your suitcase, and I'll just do intros for you all over the country.
Yeah, no, that would be sick.
So, Will, let's talk a little bit about your life because I think it's super interesting. I mean, you experienced leukemia at age 5, bipolar disorder in early adulthood, and then you had multiple leadership roles by your 20s. I'm talking about Phi Kappa Psi fraternity. How have all of these experiences shaped the way that you view leadership today?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, this is a quote I actually got from one of my favorite high school teachers. We're all leaders leading all the time.
Hmm.
So every circumstance that you navigate, everything that you go through becomes a model to other people. Even if no one's watching, how you overcome, how you carried yourself, how you conducted yourself is a part of your story. So it becomes part of who you are when you step up to be a leader. And it was like you alluded to in the bio. It's like I learned that life doesn't necessarily follow your own timeline. So you can't really prepare what's coming. You got to be able to take the blows as they come. No amount of preparation. What did Mike Tyson say? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yep.
I really feel as if that's something that I resonate with on a deep level because I think real leadership is when you learn how to navigate that period of uncertainty with your friends, how you with the people that you're leading. Because when that period of uncertainty kind of comes up, you're directly who they look to. So you are the person that has to have the courage to face the unknown of that situation together.
Yeah. Listen, as a kid, I watched every single one of those Mike Tyson fights, and I tell you, he was accurate about that. These fighters
Yeah,
came in there with a plan, and then as soon as the music hit, I mean, he just mastered intimidation. This guy
yeah,
would just walk into the ring, and I mean, you could see immediately the opponents had a plan, but as soon as he walked into the ring, they're like, that plan goes out the window because you're about to get punched in the mouth, and now everything is on. Forget about that plan. Now it's just like survival instincts. Can you get through the first round with this guy?
yeah. That's like ties into one of my philosophies too. It's like this is why I really value that lived experience over the training
Yeah.
because if you haven't gone through things, when you get punched in the mouth, you can't tough it through. So yes, trainings are important, but I think the people that have overcome the most adversity are the best equipped to be leaders. Um, and that's just because you can't teach adversity. You can't teach going through those unknowns, and you can't teach the being able to take it on the chin.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other interesting thing too about leadership is, whenever I get in front of a crowd of fraternity and sorority members, I always ask them, I say, okay, raise your hand if you're a leader. And like you see like a couple of hands go up, and I'm like, wait a minute, guys. I'm like, you don't need a position. You don't need to be chapter president or on exec board in order to be a leader in your fraternity or sorority. I mean, you are a leader, every single one of you. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, people, I think we all know chapters that had, let's say really bad leaders in leadership positions, and also some really good leaders that had no position at all. So, like, you don't need that title in order to be a leader. I think everybody in the chapter can be a leader, whether you got that title or not. So,
Yeah,
another really important concept, I think. Really
yeah,
good. Hmm.
yeah,
All right. So you said that your struggles didn't disqualify you from leadership. They actually qualified that for you. So can you unpack that a little bit? Because I think that's something that more students need to understand.
yeah. I think there's like a group of students that really could be exceptional leaders that feel as if because society places this expectation on leaders that they have to have their life mostly figured out. And that's just false. A lot of the struggles, the fact that you don't have it all together or figured out is like what makes you an authentic leader, a leader that people can connect with. And we really need more leaders that were completely broken from rock bottom and learn what it took to rebuild themselves. Like you get this unique ability to be able to coach people through crisis. You also get this unique ability to be able to spot others in crisis because you've gone through it. So you understand and are able to connect with people on a deeper level if you've gone through something and don't really have it all figured out. And those are the people that I think we really need to tap into. But that takes another level of like vulnerability,
Mhm.
um, and just like being able to really deeply connect with yourself, express your story, and listen, come from that authentic place of like, I don't have this all figured out. This is what I think. Let's see if we can make something work together.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that vulnerability. I think, if you're going to be, let's say, a good speaker on a stage, you just got to be vulnerable and just let it all out there. And that's what hooks people in because people identify with that. I mean, we've all made mistakes, 100% of us. I mean, I certainly made mistakes as chapter president, made mistakes as the executive director of the National Fraternity, made mistakes as the CEO of Greek University. Like it happens all the time. But I think that vulnerability of just putting yourself out there and saying, you know what, I don't have it all figured out. It's okay. I mean, we're all kind of, to a certain extent, making things up,
Yeah.
trying to do the best we can with what we've got.
And those are the best because you're also a listener and great leaders listen more than they speak.
100%. And I think that is definitely an underrated skill is listening. And especially if you're in a leadership position, I think that's what really people want the most is they just want to feel heard, your chapter members. And listen, 100% of the time, things are not always going to go your way. Your chapter might decide that they're going to go towards X and you want to go towards Y. But at least if you have the opportunity to kind of talk that out with your brothers or your sisters and let them know why you feel the way that you feel, you're cool with that. You're like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm outnumbered. Everybody wants to go a different way. That's okay. But you just want to get it off your chest and let people know how you feel. So I think people just want to be heard. And so that listening part as a leader is really, really important. And sometimes that means as a leader, you got to slow down and not go so fast. A lot of leaders, tend to make decisions very quickly. I know I make decisions very quickly, but that could be a good thing or a bad thing because my team might feel like, hey, this guy is moving really quick and he never really heard what I feel about the situation. So I think that's important too.
Yeah,
Now,
that's that EQ.
yeah.
Yeah, the emotional intelligence. Yeah.
100%, 100%. Now, your first talk is called From the Hospital Bed to the Boardroom. Can you talk about some early warning signs that students should be looking for? It could be either in themselves or their brothers and sisters that a crisis might be developing.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of them personally, based off of experience. What I've seen as being like maybe the first few
Mm,
is that feeling of isolation or withdrawal. If you see someone that used to be more outgoing, slightly start to withdraw and disappear a little bit more, purposely distancing themselves, maybe go quiet, less animated, maybe they aren't studying as much as they used to. I know people are not as super transparent with grades, but maybe they're forgetting homework assignments like they usually do. Maybe they're just, this kind of tweaks into the next one where there's like slightly more self-destructive behaviors. Maybe they're purposely starting more arguments. Maybe they're making a lot of decisions that don't match their true values. That's where it starts to really show up. And that kind of leads to this period of like extreme disorganization. They're consistently forgetting their wallet, losing their keys, missing homework assignments, not really managing their calendar very well. They forget things here and there. And that leads and bleeds into communication changes. So maybe they're talking about things that they don't usually talk about. Maybe they're avoiding tougher conversations. You can tell when someone gets defensive. So maybe they're getting defensive a little bit more, not really opening up, shutting down. And personally, I know my first step is sleep pattern disruptions, changes in my sleeping pattern altogether. Typically do showcase an underlying feeling of stress. You're avoiding sleep. And that sometimes just means you're avoiding being alone with your thoughts, being alone with your emotions, because that is the first part of sleeping, is being alone with both of those things. So if you're not having the ability to sleep, sometimes you're avoiding addressing some unknowns.
That's super helpful for all the fraternity and sorority members that are listening. And you know what? That's actually another reason why I love fraternity and sorority is that you will have your brothers or sisters that will have eyes on all the chapter members. So if I see that a particular brother of mine, I don't know, isn't showering for the last week or hasn't come out of his room, in 4 days, and I'm like, I got to start asking some questions. Like, what's going
Yeah,
on here? Like, why is this happening? So I have eyes on all of them at all times. But if you're not in a student organization like that and you're kind of a lone wolf, I mean, who's doing that for you? I mean, your professors? Probably not. Your professor has 300 students in a lecture hall. Like, they don't know if you're coming to class or not. They're not going to come knocking on your dorm room door and say, hey, how come you weren't in class today, Will? Like, that's just not going to happen.
yeah,
So, so I think that community kind of goes back to that community support is really, really important.
yeah.
And you know what? You also talk about the benefits of vulnerability, structure, and community support. Can you give us an example where those pillars have helped you?
Yeah. So while I was a student at the College of New Jersey, Um, I recently just had stepped down from being fraternity president, and we had a sober brother who was doing our driving, doing our rides, who was struck by a drunk driver. We had multiple people injured, and he unfortunately passed away. And in that instance, the president that was just recently elected did recognize that he was in, I don't want to say over his head, but something that was like bigger than just something that he could handle on his own, and acknowledged that he needed additional support and leaned on me as being the prior president, but also the rest of the organization. And the organization as a whole then realized it's like, wait, we also don't really know how to properly process and or go through this outside of maybe having a leader that's capable of being the rock through all of this. And I, for those who are audio only, I used air quotes when I said the rock. Uh, so we really worked together and rallied the campus together. We rallied nationals together. We organized fundraising and were able to raise $125,000 for the families that were directly impacted by this. And I myself was in a situation where I was constantly being pulled in different directions to kind of being able to organize the fundraising event, being able to organize and be the point person and point of contact through all of this. Um, and I did not have time to properly grieve what had just happened. I actually was just like, um, I was sleeping the night that it happened. The cops knocked on my door of my bedroom. So they got through a locked door into the bedroom, knocking at 5 a.m. and just pulled me up and was like, I need you to like identify these bodies. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. Like, and ever since then, it was just consistent go mode. So I didn't have real time to grieve. Um, until after I got the chance to go to therapy and really work through a lot of this. But I think what that had taught me is that even leaders consistently need support systems beyond themselves. You can't be a rock for everyone simultaneously and be the rock for yourself as well. And then also sometimes organizations need support systems. We were outmatched from the support that our own organization could handle. And when we opened that up to the school, we even found that it was too much for the school to handle. So that required us to go nationally. So consistently thinking about support systems as being like structures nested within themselves. So this tested something that was beyond just ourselves on an individual level or the support system level, and we really had to test the reins there. And that shows why Greek life sometimes is so important because it would have been hard to get that level of national support without being behind an existing organization.
Hmm. Yeah, everybody needs support. Everybody needs support. I mean, the most motivated people on the planet, they need support. Think about Michael Jordan, best basketball player ever. I don't care what you tell me. It's not LeBron. It's it's Michael Jordan. And what would Michael Jordan be without Phil Jackson to be able to push the right buttons on game night to get him to score 50, 60 points a night? He knew what buttons to push to get him to perform. It's that support that was needed at those times when Michael Jordan needed that. Same thing for, we were talking about Mike Tyson, right? Customato. I mean, there were guys out there that were coaching them and supporting them all throughout and knew exactly how to get the best out of them at all times. So that's really a part of the equation. No matter how motivated you are, even the motivators need motivation and need support. So I think that's another really good lesson there. Now, your second talk is called Integrity, Leadership in Crisis. Now, during your time as fraternity president at TCNJ, you led your chapter through a whole bunch of really difficult crises. Is there something that you learned from those moments in terms of leading when nobody is watching?
Yeah, I learned that crisis defines the type of leader you actually are. Like when you're doing the right thing, when
Mhm.
it actually costs you personally, and there is no one watching, there is no one keeping a record, and you stay on top of your integrity and lead with your values, that is what truly defines your leadership because sometimes it is easier to just brush something under the rug, even though it shouldn't be brushed under the rug. So I can open up with a story if I have some time.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I will give a slight trigger warning for sexual assault content for anyone that might have that in their past. There was a fraternity party where a brother brought a friend to campus who locked a woman in a room and attempted to rape her while she was passed out. And I could have covered it up, but I found a way to get into the room, stop that assault. The brothers stuck together and really made sure that that was handled correctly. And when it came time to figure out what to do, the sorority suggested maybe we should just bury it. They were worried about their reputation being tarnished due to the fact that one of theirs was potentially assaulted. There wasn't enough support for them at the event. Fraternity, there was a lot of people also echoing those same thoughts, like, hey, maybe we could just cover up. No one really saw. We were all hush hush. And against literally everyone's judgment on the situation, I decided what was best was to report it. And it was a strike against our record. They did see us as something that was negatively impacted on us. And directly with me, the victim's boyfriend assumed I was somehow involved, that I was covering something up. So I got direct campus feedback on me as an individual, and I wasn't even the person that actually ended up doing anything about this. So I think in those moments of crisis, if you continually pick to do the right thing, in the long run, you are rewarded, even though in the short term, it does seem a little bit more difficult because at that time, I think that the school learned that they can trust us, trust me as a leader. And I think that honestly, that moment and me handling it the way that I handled it contributed to me being elected to the Hall of Fame at TCNJ.
Wow. Well, that's really good work on your part, even though it probably would have been easier to just bury it, but you did the right thing. And as Dr. Martin Luther King said, hey, it's always the right time to do the right thing. And I think that's incredibly important for us to remember. So good on you for doing the right thing. You also use this phrase that I think is kind of interesting. You call it creative capital steward. What does that mean, and how can college leaders apply that mindset?
Yeah. So the mindset, what it means, creative capital steward, in short, is just like using your influence, your networks to multiply your impact and create lasting community value, something that goes beyond just yourself. So, in the concept of like maybe a fraternity or a sorority leader, it's maybe redirecting some of your social budget to host one or two fundraising events. They have relatively similar costs to run. I know firsthand, I was social chair of my fraternity. There were a few parties that we would throw that were upwards of like $3,000 or $5,000. And that same money could be used to make a gala with a local nonprofit and get and raise up to $50,000, which is a net positive for the community, as opposed to, you could argue, an event of that size where everyone's just getting drunk, making noise, and is a net negative for the community. So it's trying to find those opportunities to make more positive impact. I'm not saying don't have any fun, but I'm saying there are opportunities where maybe you can trade one or two parties for a good positive impact. So same social experience, massive impact, and you make a stronger organizational legacy for the org as well as each individual that's a part of the org. Great line items on the resume. So I think it's asking yourself these two questions. It's like, how can we use our influence and networks to multiply our impact? And then also thinking, what if we redirected funds towards something that was impactful?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think most fraternities and sororities could probably cancel half of their social events and turn them into either community service or fundraising or some kind of philanthropy event. And it could be with a sorority too. I mean, because
Yeah,
sororities have to do community service, fundraising, philanthropy as well. So it's not to say that you couldn't be social, but instead just do something good with
yeah,
that time. I mean, we both know that TCNJ at times, my own fraternity included, has had problems in the community, and I think, how do we shift that? How do we change the narrative of what it means to be in a fraternity at TCNJ so that way the community embraces us at TCNJ instead of pushing us out and saying, oh, they're always having parties and littering and red solo cups everywhere in the community. Like, how do you shift that? And I think
yeah,
it's by doing more good work. And at the end of the day, I think that your brotherhood and your sisterhood is going to be even tighter when you do something good in the community because you feel good about the work that you've just done, working shoulder to shoulder with your brother to do something positive in the community. And I think those feelings will last much longer. And you're also building what I call a reservoir of goodwill, which basically just means that, hey, we've done so much good in the community. So that way, if and when something bad happens, you can basically point to all the good things that you've done in the community. If you don't have any of that, then when times are tough, and you got somebody like a Dave Connor at TCNJ saying, "Hey, man, I'm upset because the fraternity did X, Y, and Z," and you have nothing to point to that's good. I mean, come on now, like what I mean? Like,
yeah. You gotta help yourself out. It's like you
yeah,
gotta recognize the social currency system
right.
and play tit for tat. To your point, it's like I'm 100% more open and accepting to a group that brings a lot of good in addition to the noise. You know,
100%.
it becomes a positive to be in a college town. Like, oh my gosh, we have so many hands volunteering. We have so many hands out in the community at our events. We have so many helping people get registered to vote, et cetera, et cetera. And they will be able to forgive the noise. I love that term that you used, the reservoir of goodwill.
Yeah, that's what it is. You need to build that reservoir of goodwill at all times. And I was in my Greek life office once a week. I was bringing by coffee, donuts, whatever, for that Greek life advisor. So that way, if and when, because I knew that there was going to be a problem somewhere down the line. I didn't know when I was going to be able to cash that in, right? You have
Yeah,
no idea because I can't predict the future. None of us can yet. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to continue to do this. And you know what? When that problem happened, she was like, I got this. Like, Mike is in my office every week. We have a really good relationship. We'll figure out what's going on and we'll go from here. But if that person doesn't know who you are when something bad happens, that's not a good position to be in. Let me just
Yep.
say. Not
Nope.
so your third talk I really like too. It's called Cocoon Theory: Leadership in Your 20s. Can you share a moment when a dream that you had for your life just kind of ended, and then what came out of that space instead?
Yeah. So the talk talks about a lot about my dream of being a writer, but I'm going to tell you guys a story that is not in that talk to make it more beneficial for you. So I had a dream during this time period where I wanted to be a portfolio manager at Aberdeen. I was hired, I was on the rotational analyst program, and pretty much had a clear career path towards that role. And unfortunately, the way that the economy was shaping out at the end of that program, at the end of my 2 year rotation, I ended up getting laid off. So I kind of lost that straight career shot that I had envisioned to myself. And because of where I was and my career progression, um, because of the situation of the economy and getting laid off relatively quickly, trying to have to quickly put your life together, I had to ask myself some deeper questions. And it was like, what do I value versus what I thought I should want? So in this moment, the portfolio manager dream was mostly birthed out of the idea of like, I want to make a lot of money. And then I had to ask the question, the more serious note is like, what actually does light me up? Like, what's something that does excite me that I would be excited to do in the morning as I wake up? And that was a lot of the work that I do now, which is for Camp No Worries, um, giving back to the story of me being a cancer survivor, going back to give to the population that once helped me was something that really helped and like give me light and feed my purpose. So it showed me that there are some scary moments in the 20s where you feel as if your world's ending. There's a lot of scary transformations. And I think in the instance of like dreams die so your purpose can be born. It's like the phoenix, it's like a cocoon, as I say, the cocoon theory. In the 20s, you're kind of going into the cocoon. You're going into this moment of being a caterpillar and eventually emerging as a butterfly. But that in between stage of being in the cocoon, it's like this uncomfortable not knowing anything. Like you're starting to recognize how much is going on in the world that you don't fully have an understanding of. You're starting to recognize that, yes, there's a lot of opportunity, and sometimes opportunity is scary. And you also start to recognize that it's like a lot of the things that I want to do require so much work, so much discipline, so much transformation, and I don't know if I'm capable of getting there. So I think where I try to get to in the cocoon theory is like this is a sacred space for finding your true purpose, but it's also accepting the fact that you don't actually know what that purpose is. Most of the things that got you to this point were false. It was like someone said it to you, you're like, yeah, I'll do that. That makes sense. And you just kind of accepted it as fact. Most people aren't living out their true desires at this point in their life. And if you are, you're lucky. You picked well. You got
Yeah.
to know yourself relatively early, but that's not the reality for a lot of people.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of left turns, right turns, U-turns in life. I wish that it was a straight line to success. The reality is it's not. Okay. I mean, I hate to
Nope.
break it to everybody who's listening, but it's just not a straight line. If you look at my career, it's all over the place. Like you got to figure it out. And the only way to figure it out is to try different things and see what resonates with you. So it's a really good perspective that Will is sharing with you. You also mentioned something about creative expression as leadership technology. So, talk to our audience more about storytelling, journaling, or even poetry. How does that make us better leaders?
Yeah, so I think the foundation of that belief is just like you can only know others as deeply as you know yourself, and you can only lead others as deeply as you lead yourself. So if you don't know what motivates yourself, you don't know how to get in tune with that deeper part of yourself, your values, the themes that really move you, you can't do the same thing for others. You can't communicate in a way that actually moves and drives people towards action unless you're able to do that for yourself. So I think creative work teaches you really early on to distill a lot of the complex emotions into like clear communication. It helps you to get deeper within yourself, your own psyche. There are sometimes when I read a poem and you actually get to the deeper meaning of the thing that I read, and I'm like, I didn't even know that about myself until I put it on paper that way, and like starting to analyze your own things that you wrote. So I think that storytelling is an excellent way to find patterns in a lot of the chaos that's going around with us. Like you get a news feed or a headline, um, or a consistent feed of just headlines, and they mean nothing until you weave them into a larger narrative. So having the ability to weave in the narrative and tell good stories is part of what it takes to be a good leader, um, because you have to be able to discern and create signal in a mess of noise.
Yeah.
And I think journaling as a uh, art form is another form of just like cultivating self awareness, self expression. And I have transitioned to that's part of my creative process. All the things that I write start from me journaling. And I really value that deeper connection with myself because it helps me connect with others just as deeply, which is annoying to some people, but hey, it is. I think it's what leads to trust. Is
Yeah.
like when you cut through all of the noise and it's like let's talk, essentially soul to soul. Let's cut out all the other noise.
Man, that's really good. I'm so happy that you found those outlets for yourself. I hope that more students will emulate that and do that on their own. I had one other question that I wanted to ask you. It's kind of about mental health and even just emotional growth. I'm wondering how fraternity and sorority communities can do a better job of supporting the mental health and the emotional growth of their members.
I think it starts with culture, as I'm sure you're aware,
Mm,
and thinking about the behaviors that you incentivize within your culture. So thinking about how can I enable a more holistic approach to connecting with one another, and this ties to the creative self expression part. But like, how can we deepen this relationship beyond what we typically have done in fraternity and sorority culture, which we typically the whole concept of hazing comes about to deepen that connection. You form a trauma bond with one another, and that's an artificial bond, but there's also this equally way that you can connect with each other, which is through commitment, through discipline, through values, and deepening that connection without using artificial means and actually forming a true bond and thinking about the behaviors that you incentivize. Maybe instead of just asking about, hey, let's grab a drink, hey, let's smoke, you could also every once in a while, I'm not saying every time, but like every once in a while at least, like, hey, let's go to the gym. Hey, let's network. Hey, let's go for a walk to the park. Like, think more holistically about the things that actually charge you up. And I think also the second area is like we have to start treating mental health as a part of leadership development, not just crisis intervention, not just as a personal level. That is a mandatory skill in learning how to be a good leader. So I think it becomes part of leadership development, just helping people manage their own mental health and the mental health of others in the organization.
Man, I love that answer. I think it's fantastic for all our college students. Make sure you stop, rewind, listen to that again. I loved when you were talking about thinking about what do we incentivize in our chapters. I think that's really important. I've seen a lot of chapters hand out awards every week to their members, but the award is like, who got the drunkest this week? And I'm like, so what kind of behavior are we incentivizing by handing that out, right?
Yeah,
What are we incentivizing in our chapter? Are we trying to build a bunch of alcoholics or are we building leaders, right? We need to get out of the alcohol business and we need to get into the leadership business, okay?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
think about what you're incentivizing in your chapter. I think that was really, really key for Will and what he's trying to build and what he's trying to say. I think is really, really important. And think about that in your chapters and your week to week interactions with other brothers at chapter meetings and such. If we can incentivize the things that are the values of our organization, whether it be Phi Psi or whatever organization you're a part of, how do we incentivize scholarship? How do we incentivize community service? How do we incentivize just being a good human? And things like chivalry and other things. How do we incentivize those things on a week-to-week basis? But if you can do that, then ultimately you're going to build the best organization on your campus. So this has been really, really fun. I've enjoyed this conversation tremendously, Will. Where can our audience go in order to follow your work, your writing, or maybe even bring you to come and speak on their college campus?
Yeah, so I think you can add me on LinkedIn. I'm really active on LinkedIn. I do have a newsletter that I'm sure will link in the description. I have the book A Dark Dream, which is in Amazon, Barnes and Noble, coming out into stores relatively soon, working on that deal to get them in actual locations. I have an upcoming collection titled Cocoon Theory, that is a collection of short stories, poems. And then you can email me at thewillwalks@gmail.com, or you can shoot me a DM on Instagram at willwalks.
Perfect. All right. So make sure you get in touch with Will on Instagram, on LinkedIn. We're going to have in the show notes, we'll have a link so that way you can get hooked up with his newsletter as well. That way he can let you know as soon as that book is ready to go and purchase all of the good things. So make sure that you're following along. William Walker on LinkedIn is the place where you can go and connect with him there. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing all this great information with us, Will, today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Will Walker, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with other college students on social media. It's really important that other students get an opportunity to hear Will's words. It's super, super important. So thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.